Welcome back to another podcast. The AI arms race just went nuclear, and the numbers will blow your mind. Tim Cook just told Apple employees behind closed doors that AI is, quote, ours to grab. But what does that really mean? And why are they trailing so far behind? Meanwhile, Microsoft is pulling some serious accounting tricks by hiding GitHub Copilot's massive success in their cloud numbers.
And get this, Meta just announced that they're spending up to $72 billion this year alone on AI infrastructure, while OpenAI's valuation is racing towards $1 trillion. So are we witnessing the greatest tech transformation in our lives or the most expensive gamble in corporate history? We're going to break down today the real stories behind the massive earning calls from Wall Street. Didn't really dig into last week, and we're going to dive into this today.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. My name is McKay Thomason. I go by Meet McKay on YouTube. This is my father, actually, Startup Hack, and we bring you guys the conversations that he and I have around the kitchen table when it comes to tech, AI, business, finance, and everything in between. And we decided to start finally recording it all, and it seems like the feedback has been really good. So we're going to keep it going. We're super excited for some of the conversations we have with you guys today. Some of the conversations that we have planned today. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Startup Hack, what do you got for us?
So tech giants last week dropped their earning calls, and they were huge, right? Like the stock market loved them. Their earnings were massive, and the AI spending numbers are absolutely staggering. We have never seen spending like this literally in history. And what's caught our attention here is there's stories behind these numbers that reveal some really fascinating plays that could reshape the entire industry. And so we're going to dive into some of these different topics today. We've got a ton more than we can possibly cover today.
Totally. Yeah, I want to go ahead and jump into this Apple AI dark horse story, if you don't mind. Let me go ahead and pull up this article and we'll go ahead and jump into it really quick. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Whoops, wrong button. Let me go ahead and pull my screen up here and then we will get started. Okay, cool. So you should be able to see this now, right? Yeah, cool.
Yep.
Okay, so we don't normally hear of these behind closed doors meetings with Tim Cook. But he held a closed doors meeting on Apple's campus in Cupertino, California, telling them that the AI revolution is as big or bigger as the internet, smartphones, cloud computing, and apps. Quote, Apple must do this. Apple will do this. This is sort of ours to grab, Cook told employees, according to people aware of the meeting. We will make the investment to do it. Okay, interesting. I want to read one part that I thought that was super, super interesting. He said, We've rarely been first, the executive told staffers. There was a PC before there was Mac. There was a smartphone before the iPhone. There were many tablets before the iPad. There was an MP3 player before the iPod. But Apple invented the modern versions of those product categories, he said. This is how I feel about AI. All right, Startup Hack. As an AI guru, as a tech mogul, what is your take? Why is Apple, one, so far behind AI, and two, where is Apple in this AI race? It seems like their Apple Intelligence has just been a massive flop. What do you think?
So they launched Apple Intelligence. They really were trying to gear towards what I've actually been a fan of doing small AI or these small LLMs on the device. And they were trying to do this, but it was early. And we saw a huge flop in this. I think they did this a lot for privacy reasons. There's a tons of privacy concerns, which pretty much every other company right now has thumbed their nose to. But Apple's always been really big on their privacy, right? This has been something that they've kicked off in a lot of different ways over the years. And I think they've really done this. Now, there's a lot of talk out there. And actually, I have like 3 different sources that are reporting that they're looking to acquire Mistral. So Mistral is a French AI company that's run from the background and has open source AI, their LLMs. They've been growing very slowly for years, and they're one of the largest open source AI companies out there. And there's a lot of chatter out there that Apple's looking to acquire Mistral. So I'm kind of wondering if Tim Cook did this because they haven't done one of these closed door meetings for a long time. And so he definitely is recognizing that they're behind here. And I'm wondering if they're about to make a big purchase there to be able to in-house them, or something similar like Google did where they're just going to poach a bunch of their top talent.
So what's Apple's play here? Is it something on the phone? Is it a chatbot? Is it making Siri better? If you're Tim Cook, where do you focus on the best user experience? I mean, it's not the biggest market share, but they definitely have this market share within the US that that's pretty substantial. How do you? Tim Cook says this is ours to win. What does he mean by win? How is he going to beat Elon at buying H100s? What is he going to do?
I'm not sure. And it's curious to see what they mean by this. And Apple can't do anything in secret. They're so big at this point. There's no way they could do anything in secret, right? Their secret card, division that was around for, almost a decade before they scrapped it. There was never really a whole lot that Apple can do in secret because they're just so large. It's theirs to win because they have their hands into every single corner of the tech market, and they have enough money to do whatever they want. Even, there's a lot of other companies that have huge valuations, but very few people have the cash reserve that Apple sits on. And so with that kind of a cash reserve, they can make a purchase overnight.
Totally. Two questions for you. Is this going to be, well, a question with two different angles? Could this be something that moves Apple up $1 trillion in market cap? Or do you think Apple's too big to move quickly enough where we can start to see the decline of Apple in innovation?
It's a good question. There's a lot of people predicting the latter, saying that Apple is starting to see the decline in innovation. I think Tim Cook's really smart. I actually think he's where Steve Jobs was very brash, Tim Cook is very reserved, right? And so they're very different personalities, but it's not Steve Jobs wasn't an idiot, and he picked Tim Cook very specifically. And Tim's done a great job steering the company, since Steve left. And I don't think he's misstepping here. I think they're trying to play this smart because it is one of the biggest opportunities. But Apple's big enough that it doesn't matter if they're first to market on this. They could crush OpenAI if they decided to, mostly because at the end of the day, they have the most of these in people's pockets in the US, right? So if Apple wants to, and they make the right play on it. Now, that being said, devil's advocate here is they totally flopped on Apple Intelligence, but to the point, it didn't kill them.
Yeah. I'm surprised that they haven't done anything with these wearables. They have so much health data, and maybe that's why. You and I actually had a conversation a few weeks ago that the reason that they are so slow is because they actually are one of the few companies that is paranoid about customer data. What's your take on that?
So I'm not a big Apple fanboy, but one of the things I do respect Apple for is their stance on privacy. They're one of the ones who I think respect customers' privacies the most. I don't think they take that lightly. I think they're very careful about what data is getting fed into the cloud. And so because of that, I think they're very slow to move on this. Whereas I think we're going to see piling lawsuits for a long time. OpenAI has been able to dodge it so far. I don't know how much longer they'll be able to dodge it. We'll see. There are a lot of mounting class action lawsuits against OpenAI particularly, but OpenAI is marching towards a $1 trillion valuation. So we're going to see.
Yeah. And to your point about data privacy, I mean, if you connect Siri to XAI, right? Whatever, if they have a partnership or whatever, now you have to hit the allow button that says allow my calendar, allow my contacts, allow my email. Yep. And so you and I always talk about, we even watched a clip last week from Sam Altman, how he said, like, hey, if we get subpoenaed by the government, we have to turn everything over, all of your chat history. Like there's no therapist client privilege or GPT client privilege. And so to your point, Apple hasn't done this. And so they don't have the issue yet of saying, oh yeah, we gave XAI or OpenAI your entire Apple calendar for the last 2 decades.
Yep.
So I thought that was a really interesting point that I hadn't thought about. Do you have anything else on this?
No, I mean, there's a whole lot of chatter. There's not a whole lot of movement. It is interesting to see Tim Cook circle the wagons like this a little bit, but they recognize they're behind, but they also recognize that they have the strength to overpower anybody when they're ready.
Totally. Awesome. Sweet. Well, what do you got next for us?
So Microsoft hit $76.4 billion in Q4 revenue. And this is an interesting one. And I covered this on my channel a little bit. It's interesting that they hit this type of revenue, and yet they've had some of the largest layoffs, not only in company history, but this was the second largest layoff of any company in the US over 2024 and 2025. So huge, massive layoffs, even though they're recording record profits. Now, on the converse side, while they're doing massive layoffs, their numbers are actually still higher than pre-COVID. So during COVID, especially during technology, there was massive staffing up. massive, massive staff ups during COVID because money was free. Money was free or very cheap. So people staffed up. And then since 2023, everybody's been voting people off the island. Microsoft's a little slow to do this. They didn't do it all in one sweep. They've laid off a handful of people or a handful of divisions and have now laid off some of the most people while recording record profits. Now, these record profits are interesting because their Q4 growth in Azure alone grew 39%. Their cloud environment is a staggering number. And this is actually from Satya Nadella, when the very first things he did when he took reins of the company was to start to staff up their cloud computing. And this obviously starting to show with $76 billion gross revenue in one quarter.
Yeah, totally. So what's your take with the Copilot integration? Like what's happening? Is this going to continue? Are we going to continue to see enterprise adopt this Copilot? Are you going to start to see some competition amongst enterprise? Who's the second place in terms of enterprise adoption right now?
Well, clearly Microsoft's number one, but they've kind of done this in a really interesting Trojan horse way, right? So GitHub Copilot, they stuck GitHub Copilot into the Office 365 listing, or the M365. The name has changed so many times over the last couple of years, I don't even know. But M365, Microsoft 365, Office 365, whatever you want to call it. And they stuck this in for a couple of reasons. One, suddenly now they put this in as kind of just a checkbox in the middle of the Office 365, which is the largest collaboration, globally, right? Like Microsoft has dominated in this space for 2 decades. And so by doing this, suddenly they're able to inflate all their GitHub Copilot numbers, right? They're able to say, oh man, we have all these hundreds of millions of users. And literally all it was people who checked a box, and suddenly their whole org of thousands of people got GitHub Copilot. So they're able to, say, hey, we have 20 million daily users, just because it's people who are already using Office, and some IT person somewhere along the way checked a box that says now you use it. I'd be really curious, and they're never going to show it, on how many people are actually using the GitHub Copilot AI every day, because in every single benchmark, GitHub Copilot trails by a long margin.
Yeah, totally. So Microsoft stock has just been on a parabolic run. I mean, the last 6 months, they're up 30%, year to date, 27%. And you can really just kind of see where they've spiked after earnings. They're approaching the $4 trillion market cap territory. In the pre-market, they are actually up 0.46%, which a company this size, it may push them over the $4 trillion mark today or this week, which is pretty crazy. I've seen a lot of companies putting a lot of eggs in the basket of hardware, the way they're doing accounting and the way they're able to depreciate it. A lot of companies are depreciating it over 6 years. What's going to happen with the hardware if this isn't as valuable as it once was in 6 years? Because there's going to be a lot of interesting accounting tactics, because they're going to have to keep buying hardware. And we've seen, maybe we can get into it in a minute, but we've seen Meta just deploy a ton of cash into hardware and server space and just data centers and racks. What are we going to do? Like, are we going to have to keep improving hardware every year? Like, how quick is the hardware iteration in this instance?
So the H100 is 5 years old, right? So the funny thing about it is, well, the H100 is the leader in your server GPU. In your server GPU land right now, the H100 is the big leader, and that hardware hasn't really changed in the last 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. And so the interesting play for Microsoft on this, and where Microsoft is going to laugh all the way to the bank on this, is Meta and xAI, like the two largest competitors to this, are deploying these, and they're deploying them for them with some hope that in the future it's going to be worth something. The thing about Microsoft is, remember where the very first thing that we opened up with, Microsoft made $76 billion in their Azure. That's hosting. So Microsoft has the ability to be able to leverage this hardware for themselves, but then also turn around and deploy it out to clients and to be able to sell it. So Microsoft, of all people, is one who will always profit from this, because they know their server hosting. They can forecast this. They know exactly what the growth is. And then plus, on the flip side, OpenAI is still paying a huge bill to Microsoft for this. And so when OpenAI is talking about all of their hosting, they're actually mostly leaning on Microsoft for this hosting right now. And then Microsoft, even if OpenAI were to go away, which is going to happen with a $1 trillion company, of course, Microsoft owns this corporate hosting space. So if you're a corporation and you're going to go to GPU hosting, you've got about a 75% chance you're going to be hosting with Microsoft.
Crazy. Wow. Do you have anything else with this Microsoft war and how much money they're just spending on their AI and like, are you going to see Microsoft continue to be innovative, or do you think they're just going to coast and hopefully stay on a trajectory of just getting users on Copilot? Are they going to go for mass user adoption, or are they going for the Elon where it's just like innovate, innovate, innovate?
I think they're the less sexy, but the much more profitable model where they are getting other people to pay for their hardware essentially.
Yeah.
So they're paying for this. And the reason the market looks like that is because when you have a $76 billion Q in one quarter of revenue, right? For your Azure, for your hosting growth, that's not going away. The thing about that is full recurring revenue. Now, XAI and OpenAI, they're growing on some levels of recurring revenue, but these are small revenues. Most corporations I know have a minimum of like a $10,000 Azure hosting bill. Like OpenAI and XAI have nowhere near that kind of money. So Microsoft's just sitting back, and they can do both, actually. They can do the non-sexy, just deploy the data centers, make sure it's getting paid for while using this internally. And the huge shift recently, Satya Nadella said that they've actually laid a bunch of people off because they actually are still hiring into the AI divisions. So they basically laid off a bunch of people who didn't have AI development skills so they could continue to invest in it. And they have one of the largest hardware bases out there, very quietly growing while still getting it paid for. So the difference to all these other people who are raising this on VC capital, these guys are raising it on revenue.
Totally. It's actually funny that you talked about Microsoft continuing to hire for the right positions. There was actually this leaked document I want to go over with you as an engineer, and I think there's a lot of people out there that are worried that AI is going to replace their job, and they're not going to be able to I don't know, feed their families in the future based off of their skill set. I want to go ahead and share this document and get your topic on it, your thoughts on it. I don't have a ton to confirm this source, but Microsoft's pay packages for their engineers was recently just leaked. And you go from level 57, where you're in the high salary range of 95 to 124,000. I'm going to kind of just scroll through here really quick. You can kind of see it steadily increase, where the stock awards jump up from $15,000 to $120,000, signing bonuses, etc. It goes on for quite a while, and you can get to the really, really high levels. And I'm sure that this is just super high up. But they goes to level 70, where your main salary is 250 to 378. And it can go even higher than that. And then your stock awards, your on higher stock awards are 800K to 1.9 million. Annual stock awards are 1.0 to 1.4 million. I'm sure if like they hit certain benchmarks. Signing bonuses, I'm sure this is just where you're kind of seeing the crazy numbers, and then their annual bonus. So you see those crazy numbers, and then just to wrap it up here, I want to go ahead and share this graphic with you because I thought it was really crazy. There's this graphic that kind of depicts it. If you didn't invest your compensation, if you just worked at Microsoft, started from the ground floor and went up, you would generate a cumulative non-investment compensation of $4.2 million. Your annual compensation would come out to 2.1 million, I think. And then by year 30, and if you invested it, it would end up to 13 million. And you can kind of just see how fast that compounds. What is your take on engineers being replaced in general? Microsoft's hiring. What is your advice to people wanting to get into this field? How do you get into this field? What are your overall thoughts on the landscape of becoming an AI engineer? Sometimes they're referred to as researchers, and XAI actually just banned that term from within their company. And they said, we don't want to diminish the word engineer, so we only hire engineers. What's your take on the hiring landscape, and how do you get into it?
So first of all, if you're getting stock compensation from some crazy startup versus Microsoft, I think we started off talking about Microsoft looking where their market cap is and where their stock is. Their stock is extremely valuable. So like a stock offering from Microsoft is actually worth something, right? Engineers aren't going away. Like the irony to all this is where there's been this scare of, oh my gosh, we're gonna, AI is gonna replace developers. And I just was arguing with some dude in my comments last night who was like, you have no idea, 90% of engineers are gonna be gone by the end of next year. And I just laugh at this because Elon Musk, who's deploying the largest suite at the fastest of any H100s, still is paying almost $500,000 for an Android development position right now. They just posted that last week, $449,000 to be exact. You just went through the compensation. Most of those largest levels are being offered to AI engineers to be poached for the good ones. AI talent is absolutely in demand right now. And where you might see, and people show these charts all the time about, engineers, software engineers or software developers going down. The difference is what they're not seeing is the term AI engineer or something thereabouts, like you just mentioned, a handful of different titles to it. These have gone up 400 to 600% in number of listings. So a software engineer is just going by a different title now and becoming an AI engineer, right? We recently just hired an AI engineer that's been working in AI for 6 years. To put that in perspective, ChatGPT, really hit its big, upswing, or OpenAI, became the big thing 3 years ago, right? ML and AI has been around for a long time. This isn't new. And with this, so this engineering is not going away. And everybody who says it is, I just laugh. And I'm like, that's interesting, because I also get a lot of people in my comments who talk about that there are mainframe developers from the 60s still using Fortran, and they've been told for now 6 decades that they were going to be going away, right? And so there's just this technology that's never going to go away, and developers aren't going away. What you're going to see is AI is going to augment and enhance a software developer. So if you're a software developer, the number one thing you should be doing is digging in and learning AI. I hear a lot of developers who are like, oh, it just creates slop, we shouldn't even be using it. Yeah, but you need to learn how to program it. And that's what the biggest thing that I can encourage people right now. Tell all my devs all the time, AI is not going to replace you, but a developer who knows how to use it might.
Got it. It's funny when you're saying that a lot of people are like, oh, software developers are going to go away, but these companies that are wanting to get into AI, and it looks like unless you start adopting AI, you're just going to you're not as desirable. For investors, you're not as desirable. You can't offer as good of a product as your competitor. Who's the first person a company calls when they want to start implementing AI, right? You're going to call a software engineer. You're going to call a dev friend. You're going to figure out someone like, how can I get into this? Because you can't just plug in a chatbot to your company and expect something to change, right? So you talked about learning how to develop AI. Like, what does that mean? Like, if I'm fresh out of high school or I'm wanting to go into college, you and I were talking on the phone just Sunday night. What are you seeing in the education landscape in terms of learning how to develop AI? What resources are you suggesting?
So that's a huge subject. We definitely just dive in and start writing code. That's the very first thing. There's honestly, like, it's fine if you even start learning to vibe code, but learn what it means. Don't use vibe coding as an excuse to be like, oh, I don't need a software developer. Maybe that's your way to dive in. Maybe you use AI to learn and to teach yourself. Maybe you join something like Startup Hack's Coding Bootcamp. Like, it doesn't matter, start somewhere. But the biggest thing we're seeing right now, people going after technology are not going into degrees. People with degrees are really struggling to hire right now, whereas people with experience are getting hired really fast. And that kind of goes into, and I'll kind of leverage this into our next topic here, because if you don't think that software developers are in demand, you obviously aren't paying attention to the news, because it has been a massive Wild West land grab for people who know how to develop on AI. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg has been going after their huge super intelligence lab, right? And as he builds this super intelligence lab, he is poaching developers faster than you can say. It's going so quick. It's crazy.
Totally. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, Mark Zuckerberg actually posted a clip right after the earnings call about Meta's AI at Meta, which is, it's funny. Yeah. AI at Meta. If you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead. It's a 2-minute clip. We can go ahead and listen to it. And I want to get your take, and we'll dive into our Meta segment here, because I think we have quite a bit to talk about in terms of Meta. Let me know if you're able to hear this really quick, and then I'll click play. Oops, let me. Whoops, wrong button again. Okay, are you able to hear that? Oh, wait, no.
Yep, I am.
And our vision to build.
Okay, let's go ahead and restart it, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into our Meta segment here. And this is a 2-minute clip shared by AI at Meta, talking about Meta's vision for the future of personal superintelligence for everyone. And I think it's really interesting, the hardware angle that Meta is taking. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
All right, you ready? Hey everyone, I want to talk about our new effort, Meta Superintelligence Labs, and our vision to build personal superintelligence for everyone. AI keeps accelerating, and over the past few months, we've begun to see glimpses of AI systems improving themselves. So developing superintelligence is now in sight. But there's this big open question about what we should direct superintelligence towards. A lot has been written about the scientific and economic advances that AI can bring, And I'm really optimistic about this. But I think an even more meaningful impact in our lives is going to come from everyone having a personal superintelligence that helps you achieve your goals, create what you want to see in the world, be a better friend, and grow to become the person that you aspire to be. This vision is different from others in the industry who want to direct AI at automating all of the valuable work. At Meta, we believe in putting the power of superintelligence in people's hands to direct it towards what they value in their own lives. Some of this will be about improving productivity, but a lot of it may be more personal in nature. This is going to be a new era in some ways, but in others, it's just a continuation of historical trends. About 200 years ago, 90% of people were farmers growing food to survive. Today, fewer than 2% grow all of our food. Advances in technology have freed much of humanity to focus less on subsistence and more on the pursuits that we choose. And at each step along the way, most people have decided to use their newfound productivity to spend more time on creativity, culture, relationships, and just enjoying life. And I expect superintelligence to accelerate this trend even more. The intersection of technology and culture is where Meta focuses, and this will only become more important over time. If trends continue, I expect that people will spend less time on productivity software and more time creating and connecting. I think that personal devices like glasses that can see what we see, hear what we hear, and interact with us throughout the day are going to become our main computing devices. I believe deeply in building personal superintelligence for everyone. And at Meta, we have the resources to build the massive infrastructure required and the ability to deliver new technology to billions of people. I'm excited to build this future, and we've got a lot more to come soon.
Okay, there's a ton to dive into there. What first initial thought was he's taking a very Apple approach, and he's not making AI. He's calling it one super intelligence, and he's not making it seem like it's us versus AI. He's making it sound like AI is your friend, Terminator is your friend, super intelligence is your friend. Be nice. Like this is something that will help us, not replace us. What's your thoughts as an engineer perspective on his approach to what they're calling super intelligence, and then we'll kind of dive into the hardware segment.
So the very first thing that I'm going to kind of laugh at just a little bit is he said a lot of the same things about the metaverse, and he said a lot of this is very rinse repeat from the metaverse, which obviously worked super well, right? But the reality of the thing I would highlight is he said, at Meta, we have the ability to spend or the amount to spend, or I don't forget how he said the resources to spend or something like that. That's true. So like we look at, at Meta and they dropped over $16 billion on just in the last quarter on, in the Meta group.
They have their financials right here.
Okay. So how much did they spend on just
this post
CapEx?
In 2 quarters, Meta managed to burn over $30 billion in cash, now down to a humble $12 billion reserved for more GPUs. Overpriced startups and bidding wars over engineers. They've been throwing money around without touching their credit line. Cute, but that's about to end. Watch for Meta to scramble for financing. Debt.
Well, hang on. One. Yeah, I don't think they have to. That's the difference. They're actually still, so right now, if you look at their top lines, they're actually making so much money on advertising right now that I don't think they're going to have to go into debt much for this. Could they, as money drops? Maybe. I don't think they're going to need to. Look at their cash surplus, right?
Yeah. Their top line revenue for Q2 was $47.5 billion, up from 22.
Then what's a measly 12 billion, right? I think that's what Zuckerberg was flexing right there. I think that was a flex. We've got it to spend is what he's saying. I don't even have to go out and get investments, right? Oh, the XAI guys, they got to go in investment. Microsoft's got to go sell, to, clients and keep that, that Office 365 revenue coming in. Here at Meta, we don't even need to do that. We can do it off of our own revenue and I can still spend whatever the heck I want. That's what I heard in the middle of that.
Yeah, no. And what this post is saying is that they haven't had to touch their credit line. You can see their long-term debt right here is untouched, stayed almost constant at 28 billion. They did drop an absurd amount of money in 2 quarters. Of course they did. I'd be really curious to see how much Apple's willing to gamble. It's just really funny to see. It's like whose stick is bigger. I wanted to see what Meta had fantastic earnings. Let me go ahead and share this. So they're up 7% just this week, 8% the month, and 10% the 6 months. They're knocking on the door of $2 trillion. Mark Zuckerberg just raking it in on his stock-based compensation. But let's get back. He talked about super intelligence via eyewear. What is that his angle? They're not going to go with the LLMs. They're going to go with eyewear.
Powered behind that, they have to have all the servers. They have to have servers. They have to have an AI infrastructure. Now, that being said, Meta's actually played very smart, and their Meta Llama 3.2 is still considered the best small LLM out there. So if you're going to deploy a small open source LLM, you're using Meta, and Meta's capturing a lot of data on that, and they're growing. So Meta, their Llama 4 was not really nearly as well received. It was too large, and they're figuring that out. So I think he's kind of circled the wagons. They saw a lot of scramble when DeepSeek was announced. I think they learned a lot from that. I think they're learning a lot watching XAI. And so that's why Zuckerberg's going after top talent right now, because he's just trying to figure out what he's going to do with it. You notice that he kind of hinted at eyewear, but he's been talking about eyewear from, frankly, they've been trying to do this from even their AR, the goggles, right? I just blanked on what the product's called.
Yeah.
But they've been trying to do eyewear for how many years? Almost a decade. And Zuck's, really interested in that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, because he could kind of flex and be like, so what if we mess it up for a few years? We're going to learn from it and grow some AI something. And he doesn't even know what they're going to do. He's just trying to put all the smartest minds in one room and see what they can come up with.
Totally. I actually just pulled up Apple's balance sheet because I was curious. So let me go ahead and share this with you. And I'll flip back. So to put it in perspective, Meta had $48 billion in cash at the end of 2024. And Apple had $29 billion, and they still have $28 billion. And obviously, these aren't small numbers, even for Mag 7. But it's just astounding how much cash Meta had hoarded to get ready for this, because Apple could still deploy a lot. They could still deploy 12 billion and be fine. But it is crazy how much cash on hand Meta had and that they were able to deploy. So it is interesting how much money Meta is throwing at this. And I'll be curious to see if Apple is going to pursue it at the same lengths as what Meta is doing. So they don't need to spend that much.
The other thing interesting about Apple is, remember, with Apple, they have to sell a lot of these. Like, for Apple to stay relevant, they've got to move a lot of hardware, right? They've got to move a lot of MacBooks. They've got to lose. Meta doesn't have to do that. They have a virtual product. It's software. They have, the staggering thing is, if you want to pull up a really interesting number, go look at, and I should have had this ready this morning, but go look at Facebook still growing. Their user base is actually still growing. They'd plateaued for a while, but on their latest earning call, they actually showed that their user base is still growing. So where all of your generation has just said, no, Facebook's for the boomers, right? While that may be true, it's actually still growing. They are still growing a large user base. And so Meta still continues to grow, and they're raking it in because their advertising is still one of the best. In a lot of angles, if you want to sell something, you're still going to Meta to pay them dollars. And it's definitely gotten expensive. As somebody who's more expensive, it's somebody who's been advertising on Meta for the better part of almost 15 years. It's way more expensive now than it even was pre-COVID to advertise on Meta. They have definitely slowly raised their prices in their advertising, and they're laughing all the way to the bank.
Totally. Here's you can kind of just, I pulled it up quickly. Whoops, I keep pushing the wrong button. Okay. This is their ad impressions delivered year over year. I'm trying to find their growth numbers. I only found like their ad impressions.
Okay.
But you can see the change over, like, their impressions on ads is still growing. So you can imagine the user base.
Yep.
So it's awesome.
They're still relevant.
Yep, they are. And the Instagram acquisition was brilliant. They should have bought Snapchat. Snapchat didn't sell to them, and I think that'll end up being, I think they'll wish they had. Snapchat wish they had sold to them. Cool. Do you have anything else for Meta?
I think it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with. When you stick all the smartest minds, he's kind of done a Thomas Edison type of thing where I think he's sticking everybody into an invention lab, what he's calling his super intelligence lab. I don't think it's the lab part is, I think he's trying to take a play out of Thomas Edison's playbook, where he's trying to get all the smartest minds. Thomas Edison did this and gathered all the smartest minds of his time and then just locked them in his factory and said, cool, you can invent whatever you want. I'll pay for it, but I own the invention. And I think that's what Zuckerberg's doing here.
Yeah, totally. I'm trying to see, we're starting to run down to the wire on our time here. Is there something else that you had? We obviously have a handful of topics that we could dive into, but is there something pressing that you wanted to talk about?
Nope. I mean, I think we're doing good. We still got a little bit of time here. Okay. So, Microsoft's still definitely growing in their data centers. I think as we watch this talent war, I think the talent war between these are what are really interesting. OpenAI has lost a massive amount of talent. One of the things that's very interesting is if you look, there's almost nobody left of the founding team at OpenAI. And I think it's showing. We're hearing a lot of rumors about ChatGPT coming out, and Sam Altman's definitely been making the loop on podcasts to try to, hype up OpenAI. But the reality of the matter is behind closed doors, they're scrambling. They've lost all their top talent. Yes, the only thing about it is that their revenue has started to take off, right? And they're starting to see that, but for how long? Right. Yeah. And the other thing about it is they just had to go raise more money. Right.
Yeah. So I actually have that article right here. So I was just doing some calculations last night, and maybe the comments can tell me if I'm totally wrong. OpenAI just raised $8.3 billion, which in terms of the AI landscape is not that bad. They're just gonna have to continue to raise. I was reading Microsoft's earnings last night, and if I'm correct, they're losing, even with generating $13 billion in annual recurring revenue, they're losing around $15 billion a year, which is crazy. And they're projected to hit 20 billion by the end of the year. And Anthropic is raising at 48 times revenue. And so I just rounded up to 50. And obviously 50 times 20 billion is 1 trillion. Now I think you kind of have to compress that number when you get to these large of numbers. So they may not quite be $1 trillion company, but their valuation is certainly getting into the high hundreds of billions, $20 billion in annual recurring revenue, and still losing $15 billion a year. How does OpenAI make money from here? What do they do to fix this?
They're gonna have to go after corporations. Oh, they absolutely care. So Silicon Valley Bank actually, just while we were on this podcast, just released their numbers, and one of the top highlight things that they are highlighting here is AI companies are burning more cash to gain revenue. So not only are they having to 100x, I think I've pointed out here numerous times, XAI had to do 100x hardware to get 10x gains, and that's what they were bragging. And most people are actually saying, man, they'd be lucky if you gave them 2x gains from Grok 3 to 4. I've recently subscribed to Grok 4. I've actually been fairly unimpressed, to be honest. And so, yeah, it's great if you want to use a fancy chatbot to talk to you. But other than that, like for those of us who want something more than a toy, I've actually been fairly unimpressed and went back to using Claude predominantly for most of my AI use. But like we're seeing this 100x spend to get a 10x gain, and that's just not going to sustain forever. And so, we're going to continue to see this, and OpenAI will always be able to, they were one of the fastest in history to run to $1 trillion market cap, right? They were from non-existent to $1 trillion in about 3 years, is essentially the back of the napkin story. So because of that, they will always be here. They're not going to go away. They have enough of a user base and enough people, even I get after people all the time that I'm around who are like, oh, well, did you chat GPT that? And I always say no, because I don't use chat GPT. But it's become almost synonymous to how you use AI is, did you chat GPT that? And so, just like, did you Google that, right? And so they're definitely here to stay. What's going to happen? They are chasing the corporate and the large contracts, right? OpenAI has a large enough government contracts, and Sam Altman has definitely buddied up to Trump enough that he's tried to stay relevant, just even on the government contracts, if nothing else.
Yeah. I'm going to be fascinated to see, because a $15 billion burn rate is pretty crazy.
And that's growing. The burn rate is increasing. That's the thing about it. The burn rate is increasing. It's not even necessarily how much they're burning. It's the fact that it's increasing, not decreasing. Generally, in the general premise by everybody is, oh, this will get cheaper over time. It's not. It's actually getting more expensive.
Yeah. That's pretty insane. Okay, I'm trying to see what else was there. Yeah, so the 50x revenue is pretty crazy, but I'm trying to see if there's anything else. What else do you see out there that you think is a big story that people should be watching out for with AI?
Well, I mean, it's just exactly that. People get after me all the time because they're like, you keep saying the bubble is going to burst and that AI is going to go away. The bubble bursting and AI going away are two very different things. Will the bubble burst? Hands down. There's going to become a reckoning. A lot of this is backed by debt. Even if it's not necessarily OpenAI's debt, a lot of these, the people who have invested in them are investing using debt. That's going to get called on. There's going to become a reckoning for it. There has to.
Yeah, I think OpenAI is going to raise a lot of money when they go public, because it's going to be like one of those stocks, like everybody. It's going to be like the Yahoo of the 2025. It's going to be like, did you own Yahoo? Did you own those .com bubble stocks? And everybody's going to want to own a piece of OpenAI because they think it's going to continue to go up. But OpenAI, as soon as they become public, now they're going to have to start doing their public filings where we can see how much they're growing, how much they're spending. And I don't think OpenAI wants that. I mean, I think Elon has kind of been very public that being a public company is not very fun. And he was even trying to take Tesla private a number of years ago. And SpaceX is one of the largest private companies. But with this, we obviously, since we spoke last, Figma had an insane IPO, and I think they tripled in price. I actually haven't looked today. They were originally supposed to IPO, I believe, around $30, and now they are trading for, let's see, what are they trading for? They're trading for $88. And so they can almost buy Adobe. Funny enough, not really, but
Figma has a product that people are using, and Figma has a product that every corporation out there is buying a license for. There's literally, if you're a corporation more than 10 people, you have a Figma license, right? And so Figma has a real business model. There's a real revenue growth. That's the problem. Is a couple of things. OpenAI is going. I don't think OpenAI will ever be able to go public. I think their corporate structure was designed to never allow them to go public, and it was done that on purpose. And so I think they will always be mired in lawsuits that would keep them from going public. As such, that's part of and I think a lot of people realize that, and that's part of the reason you saw so much talent jump ship. They knew that the money to be had is only going to be had by the people at the very, very top of the company, as they do very nefarious things to get money out of the company. And I have no good words for Sam Altman, because that's essentially what he's doing now. And I think he's propping up their position. And OpenAI and ChatGPT 4 has been a dismal failure, and I think you're going to see the same from ChatGPT 5.
I'm excited to see. I'm excited to get your perspective. We should next time. I really want to do this is why you leave down in the comments if you think that Startup Hack should do a benchmark, because we thought that Grok 4 would just be amazing, that you would love it. So to hearing that you're a little underwhelmed by it would be really I'd be interesting to hear like why you're underwhelmed by it on a more technical basis. So yeah, maybe we got to get a Startup Hack AI benchmark test. I think that'd be fun to see.
We've been looking at it. It's just a lot of work, and I'm busy making videos.
Yeah, cool. Well, what else do you have? I didn't introduce you super well. What is Startup Hack, and what do you do? Who are you?
We love to build custom software for companies, and we also love to train software developers. Those are kind of our two big claims to fame. And so if you need help building any custom software, reach out to us at startuphack.com/Spencer. We'd love to help you out. But I think we definitely are at time, so we probably need to, Awesome. And you want to give your intro as well?
Yeah, I like to talk about stocks. I like to play with spreadsheets. I like to look at company financials every once in a while. I'll dive into some breaking news or talk about politics and how it affects companies in the stock market and stuff like that. I just like stocks, and I like making YouTube videos, so it goes pretty well together. But thank you guys so much for watching. This was episode 3. We don't have our name for our podcast, but we really enjoy doing this every Tuesday morning. And so if you guys liked it, consider subscribing, leave a comment of your favorite segment, and be here next Tuesday morning, because we'll be here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.